Guys, I'm here today to do my April wrap up. So in April, I was half the month I was on vacation and I read basically nothing when I was in Italy, which is super disappointing. I only finished 2 books, and one of them was Agatha Christie I mentioned in my March wrap up. So when I got back, I was like, oh, I'm going to try to do 30 and 30, and that kind of fizzled out. I did not finish or complete that goal slash challenge. I am going to try to read a lot this weekend though, but I always say that and then I always do nothing. And I haven't really been on BookTube, so I'm kind of watching a lot of BookTube right now. But anyways, let me film this and then I will get back to other stuff. So the book that I finished while I was in Italy was Out by Netsuo Carino, and I think I started this a while ago. I might have started it last year. I hope not. I hope I started it this year, but I might have started it last year. This is translated by Stephen Snyder. So this is a pretty intense book. I would classify this as a thriller. I think I started this for March Mystery Madness, which makes me think that I started it last year. But we're following 4 women. One of them is more of the protagonist than the other 4. But basically, these 4 women work overnight. They do shift work at a like a packaging company like for food, and one of the women kind of like loses it with her husband. I mean, he's not a good husband, not to excuse her behavior, but she does kill him. And then they're trying to find out what to do with the body and other stuff. So that is kind of like the catalyst, I guess, of the story, but it is a lot more involved than just that. I did find most of this book to be extremely enjoyable. It is really quite dark. If you don't like uh, I don't know if mutilation is the right word, but there's a lot of disturbing things with regards to dead bodies in this book. So if you're not into that, I would not pick this up. But if you're okay with that, I really did enjoy this. Again, except for like the last little bit, there's a particular character that has a lot of like horrible like sexual fantasies that involve being very brutal towards women. And at first it was like fine. I mean, it's not fine, but while you're reading it, you're like, okay, whatever. But then towards the end, it's just like way too much and way too repetitive. And it's just like, I get the point. I understand what kind of a person you are. I don't need you to continuously say like what your fantasy is about this particular person. It got a little bit to be too much. So I think I ended up giving this a 4 out of 5 stars. If without that, and the ending, I did not really like the very end. If it weren't for those 2 things, I think I would have given this a 5 stars. I really enjoyed the general reading experience of this. The next thing that I finished is, see, I was going to do these things again in order of least to most favorite. Forgot. Next time, hopefully. So the next thing that I finished is Mary Ventura and the Ninth Kingdom by Sylvia Plath. This is one of the Faber stories, and I absolutely adored this too. I think in the intro they were saying that this is like the first thing that she wrote, and it was rejected. It was rejected by her, like from her school, or they thought that it was rejected from a magazine and then she revised it, and this is the original version. I guess it is a little like confusing as to what exactly is happening, but I think that's always fun. I really enjoy books that kind of at first you don't really know what's going on, and then the more you read it, you start to kind of figure out what's going on. So basically, Mary is on a train, and the train is going to the Ninth Kingdom, and that's all I'm going to tell you because it's super tiny, and I don't want to give away. I feel like, again, part of the enjoyment is kind of discovering for yourself what exactly is going on, and or at least what you think is going on, because you probably won't ever know, because it's not one of those super like crisp and clear books. But I did really enjoy this. The next thing I finally finished also was The Angel's Game by Carlos Ruiz Zafón, translated. Oh my gosh, hey baby. Translated by. Oh my gosh, I hate it when I do this. Lucia Graves, and I also really enjoyed this, but I feel like so in general, I really liked this book. I did not like it as much as the first book, but we're following a character whose name I don't even remember. Oh, David. We're following a character named David, and he is an author in Spain and Barcelona, and I'm pretty sure it's Barcelona. yeah, Barcelona. And, you know, he kind of gets, he doesn't have a lot of recognition. He's got his mentor, and his mentor is super famous, and he's kind of like not really getting famous. He's not going anywhere. Oh my God. Laverne is losing her mind right now. And so he kind of gets involved with this character who he refers to as someone, but I forget what the guy's actual name is. I think I don't remember. There's some guy that he is basically working for that says that he's a French publisher. And so the general mystery of the story, like who this guy is, what's happening with the mentor, and like this woman that David loves, that, you know, it's an unrequited love situation. And so the actual story I found really compelling, and it has that same kind of feeling that the first book has, where it's like very dark and atmospheric. But there are sections of this book where, so this guy that's hired David has hired him to make basically a book, to write a book that's some kind of religious thing. And so there's sections of the book where they're talking about that, and it just really bored me. So it's a lot of like philosophical talk, and I don't know, I just, that part I didn't really enjoy that. So I did get bored at certain points during this book, but in general it paid off for me, because the end, it kind of tells you how I thought that this was just related to the first book because of the Cemetery of Forgotten Books, because he does go to the Cemetery of Forgotten Books in this book. But also it does tie in at the end with the two books. So I thought that was a good payoff, like making you wait until like literally the very, very end to tell you how the two books are related. So I am going to continue on with the series. Probably not for like a year though, because there's other stuff to be read. The next thing that I finished is the Lydia Steptoe stories by Djuna Barnes. So I think these are three short stories published under the name Lydia Steptoe. Yeah, so the pseudonym Lydia Steptoe. So these are written kind of like in diary formats. There's 3 of them. I don't really remember the second one very much. The first one I thought was super funny though. It's like a really precocious young girl, I think, being very precocious and like stuff like that. And so I thought that was really funny. And the last one is like an older lady. It's called Madame Grows Older, a journal at the dangerous age. These are all super short, so I don't remember a ton. You don't get like a super deep kind of like feeling about what's going on, but it was entertaining while I was reading it. The next thing that I read was Monstrous, Volume 1 by Marjorie Liu and Sana Takeda. I am assuming that Marjorie is the writer, yes, and Sana is the artist. The art in this is beautiful, and I don't really know how to describe what happened in this, but it is like very fantasy-esque story about this world. There's been a war, and there's 2 different like sections. Kind of, there's the people that are I forget what they call them, but there's people that are like you know what, now that I'm thinking about it, there's a page that shows about all the different types of people. That would help me right now. So there's, these are the different types of people. So there's humans, ancients, cats, arcanic, which are half-breed, which are half human and half ancients, and then the old gods. So there's basically, I don't really think there's very many ancients, but humans and arcanics have kind of like their own separate places. So the arcanics are kind of like a half animal-y type creatures. And so she is trying to find out information about her mom and her past, and it's kind of like a revenge. She's getting revenge too. But in general, the art is absolutely stunning. I don't know. It's kind of hard because you don't want to like give anything away, but it is absolutely beautiful. And I did buy volumes 2 and 3 at Indie Bookstore Day, and I am going to read those for sure very, very soon. It was really good. The next thing that I finished was The Linden Tree by Cesar Aira, and this is translated by Chris Andrews. And this is a very quiet story. It's not really a story. It's just kind of like a person telling us about his life. I don't know if it is autobiographical at all, but it is kind of occurring in Argentina during the Perón period. So I didn't I didn't realize that because I know very little about history in general and extra little about history in South America. But it is, I mean, that's Evita, like the Madonna movie, that song "Don't Cry for Me, Argentina." I love that song so much. But anyways, that's the lady who is one of the Perón. She's Eva Perón. I don't know what the husband's name is, but so it's kind of taking place during that time period, and so it's just kind of like a little glimpse into what life was like then. Again, if you really like plot driven things, I would not suggest this. This is very quiet and quite plain, but I like reading about people's experiences, etc. So I did enjoy this. I feel like I liked everything that I read last month. That's kind of exciting. The next thing that I finished is If They Come First by Fatima Asghar, and this is a poetry collection, and I absolutely loved this so much. I gave this 4 out of 5 stars too. I wish I could remember like a specific one that I could read to you, but it's really good and really heartbreaking. Oh, actually, there is one that I'm remembering right now, but it's really rough. It's called 100 Words on 45's 100 Days. Let me see if I can find it. Not all of them are like this, but this one stands out to me in my mind. So again, 100 Words on 45's 100 Days. His last name means to win. He drops bombs, flattening children to prove he can. My friends write "not my president" online. I'm the farthest from home I've been in a long time. I write, I pledge no allegiance, but children stay dead, buried by cement in Syria, or cops bullet in America, and he goes on golfing, vacationing, his belt swelling past buckle, while swarms of children never grow up. He's not my president, but I live in a country whose sun is war. We keep rotating around its warmth, our faces sun-kissed each and every morning. So they're not all like quite that like heavy, but that one like really stuck in my brain because again it like really impacted me when I read that, and just in general this was so good. I would really recommend that. And the last thing that I finished was In the Last Analysis by Amanda Cross. I forget who this is a pen name, whatever, it's not in here. Caroline G. Heilbrunn, I think. This was so good. Like, I did not think I was going to enjoy this when I think I read the first, like, page maybe, and I was like, I don't really know about this. I feel like whenever I get mass market mysteries like this, so, I think of, like, Janet Ivanovich and, like, the Sookie Stackhouse books, like, things that I don't really like because the writing is just not very good, and, like, the stories not that great. Like the story's not good enough to like get me past the writing or like the Outlander, but this was so good. Our protagonist is Kate Fansler, and she is a English professor. She's of graduate students, and she's got a student who asks for a recommendation for a psychiatrist, and so she recommends her close friend and ex-lover, Emmanuel Bauer. Or she, recommends him to the student, and so the student does start going to him, and then she ends up dead, and then everyone's trying to find out who did it, basically. And I really enjoyed this because, as opposed to like Christie and Arthur Conan Doyle specifically, so like the Holmes and Poirot are the ones that I'm thinking of the most. For most of the story, you're getting clues as to like what kind of, there's like, oh, this was found here. It's a lot of like visual clues of the room and of like the place and how people could have come into or out of, and you're kind of kept in the dark for most of the book, and then at the end there's usually like a big reveal. But for this one, you're kind of taken along with the author, and there's not a lot. It's not like here's a room and I think because it just takes place in the city as opposed to like, oh, off in the country where there's only like 6 people there, so you kind of have to figure out between those 6 people who did it. This, is in a city, and so there's a lot more hustle and bustle. So she is kind of like, there's certain suspects, like, the people whose appointments were before and after hers, and the guy that gets all of the money and her will and all of this stuff, and the doctor next door. So you're trying to find out like she's kind of following these people and looking into their backgrounds to find out who did it. And so there's a lot more information that you're getting. And I feel like it's not just like, boom, here's, I mean, there's a little bit of a boomy aspect to it, but in general, I thought that it was, first of all, extremely, extremely well written. I think one of the complaints on Goodreads is like, oh, it's super pretentious. But I like a good pretentious author and narrator, so I don't care. And yeah, it's just really, you're along for the ride. I felt like much more of a companion to Kate as opposed to like not when you're reading, a Sherlock Holmes book, basically. So yeah, I would recommend that. I think this was written in the 60s, so there is some like uncomfortable speak because of that. Just FYI, racially, I think at the beginning, but I don't really. It wasn't like a major plot pointer. It wasn't like big in the story. It was just like a throwaway kind of comment. So I don't quite remember exactly like what it was or how offensive it was. But I just wanted to mention that in case you read it and you're like, yeah. So those are all of the things that I read in the month of April. I only watched 2 movies in the month of April. I watched Spy with Melissa McCarthy. Melissa McCarthy. She's very famous, and I should know what her last name is, but I don't. Sookie from Gilmore Girls is the main character of that movie, and it has that super funny chick too that was in. Oh my gosh, I'm so bad at things. She's in Bridesmaids, and it has, oh my gosh, Jason Statham. He was such a riot in this movie. So, I don't really feel like describing what the movie plot is about, but I really did enjoy it. And I appreciate Jason Statham so much. First of all, he is so fine. Second of all, he is I really appreciate a person that can make fun of themselves. Like him and John Hamm, I feel like are really, really good people that you think of as a serious actor, but that are super funny because they don't take themselves seriously at all. And then I also watched Amelie. We've got a movie theater downtown called Mission Theater. It's one of the McMenamins properties, and unfortunately they're not doing it anymore, but they were doing like a movie and a drink. So they have an old movie that they would play, and then they would create a custom cocktail for it. And so when you bought a movie ticket, you'd get a drink ticket. I feel like I'm talking so fast, and I am sorry if I'm doing that. But anyway, so they played Amelie, and I hadn't seen that movie in forever. So Jake and I went. Plus, they're not doing this special thing anymore, and that was, I think, their last one. So we went to that, and it was wonderful. That movie. I love that movie so much, but it fills me with so much sadness also. Just thinking about it right now is making me want to cry. But specifically the scenes where she, she I don't know if if you haven't seen the movie Amelie, you need to go watch the movie Amelie. But there's a specific scene when she kind of melts, and that whole like plot point of the movie where she, loves this man but is afraid to, present herself to him or be vulnerable to him because she's worried about him not reciprocating those feelings, even though like it's so obvious for us that he does. Sorry, spoiler alert. I don't really think that's a spoiler. It's a romantic comedy. But yeah, so that made me cry. Anyways, video is way too long. I'll talk to you guys later.